Dear confirmands, first of all, congratulations on your confirmation today. This is a significant rite of passage for you. The next thing you know, you'll have your driver's license, and you'll be terrorizing us all. Hopefully, this is also a significant moment in your faith journey, too. I've been thinking about my confirmation class and what life was like for me when I was 12, 13, and 14 years old. I want to tell a few stories. I was in confirmation 20 years ago in a galaxy far, far away. 1989. This was before cell phones and texting. It was before the internet and email. It was before DVD players and DirecTV. It was before the Nintendo DS. The best thing we had was just regular Nintendo in a box plugged into the wall. It was before you could watch movies in cars as you were going down the road. We just stared out the window despairing until we got to our destination. We had the basics, though: indoor plumbing, electricity, cable television with maybe 15 channels. I was in a confirmation class of 8. Seven boys, and 1 girl. Our teacher was the Reverend Ron Peterson. Now, here's what I remember from Confirmation Sunday. I remember that on Confirmation Sunday, we wore little white robes to make us look like the angels that we weren't. Nikki, the solo girl in our class, had a corsage, and the boys all had light blue bow ties. We were looking sharp in our bow ties. We felt like dorks in our bow ties. Now, I'm sure we affirmed our baptismal promises. We said our I do's and our I promise with the help of God to the same questions that you'll be responding to today. I'm sure in the sermon, Reverend Peterson talked about confirmation and how significant it is and what this year has meant. But I don't remember any of that. What I remember was that blue bow tie. I was 12, you know. I've been thinking through my confirmation classes, trying to remember what I can. I remember sitting in the church basement with Reverend Peterson around us, long table, and my classmates weren't really paying any attention. They're just waiting to be released for the night. And I don't know how much attention I was paying either, because all that I can really remember about confirmation was my confirmation book. It was orange, and it had little cubes on the front. Now, I have one other vivid confirmation memory. One member of our class, Eric Horn, was older than the rest of us. He was 15, and he had a school permit. Now, legally speaking, in our small town, this meant that he could drive from his home to school and back. Now, in reality, that meant that Eric drove wherever he wanted to. And so he drove his Nissan extended cab blue pickup to confirmation classes. And one night, I had a ride home from him. He took me to my house. Now, Eric liked music, and he liked speakers and loud music. I'm pretty sure he's designing audio systems somewhere today. So I got in the truck, and he said, "Hey, Todd, listen to this." And he turned the dial up on the stereo, and he turned the bass tape way up. Dum, 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 you know, as we're going down the street. And the bass was so low and so loud that my hair started to stand straight out. That's my most vivid confirmation memory. So, confirmands, if you're wondering, like, what was this year about? What's going on? I don't know what I'll remember. You better watch out, because apparently that's one path to being a pastor in the United Church of Christ. You might be standing up here someday. Now, I'm hoping that 20 years from now, you might remember something of the trip to Chicago that we took. We went to 2 extremely large churches that are very different from this church, or the church in Mineral Point. You experienced the heart of the evangelical movement by going to Willow Creek Community Church, and one of the largest churches in the country. And by going to Trinity United Church of Christ, you experienced arguably the most powerful and alive black church in the country. And if you know anything about the black church, you know that this means that it's arguably the most powerful and alive church in the country, if not the world. You went hungry for 30 hours during the 30-hour famine, and maybe that experience will stick with you. You had faith conversations with your parents, and maybe in one of those, you learned something about your parents that was something new, or you learned something about their faith that was something new, or you learned something about yourself that was new, and maybe something that was interesting enough that it'll stick with you. That's the hope. And in 20 years, when you're a dinosaur like me, you can think back and try to figure out what's stuck. Now, it may be that there were all sorts of little things I learned in confirmation that just built on my experience of Sunday school and my experience of going to church every week with my parents, and it's just hard for me to sort out what I learned when. That's probably the case. But what I really wish I would have learned, what I wish I would have known, trusted in my heart 100%, was the central message of baptism. Now, I'm sure I heard it. But maybe I didn't get it. Or maybe I did kind of get it, but I just didn't trust it very much. But that message is that we're God's beloved. We're beloved. You are beloved. God loves us. We're loved. I went to a school like Iowa Grant. It was this one building out in the middle of the country between 4 small towns that were smaller than Dodgeville by far and smaller than Mineral Point too. And we had 65 students in my class, and we all did the assignments and took the tests, but what really mattered to us were all the things that happened before school, between classes, at lunch, after school, at the activities. That's where the social stuff happened, where the important decisions were made. Who's cool? Who's not? Who's popular, important? Who's less important? Who's not so important at all in the eyes of others? Now, at my school, it seemed like there were 3 circles. There was the popular crowd at the center, there were the outcasts at the fringes, and then there was everyone in between. And I remember feeling like I was hanging on to that popular crowd, just holding on. And I remember thinking in my head, I actually remember these words going through my head, I don't know what life would be like if I wasn't in the popular crowd. In my mind, being pushed out of that circle meant that I wasn't important anymore. It meant that I wasn't likable anymore. It wasn't true, but it's what I thought. Well, the writing was on the wall for my future social circles. It was only a matter of time until I was booted from the popular crowd. You see, my dad was the choir director at my high school, and I liked music too. And I played sports, but I didn't win any bench pressing contests. So this wasn't a recipe for popularity in my little small school. So I got picked on. I was an easy target for that, as were many others. And looking back, I can see that I got picked on by people more popular than me, or by people who are really concerned about their place in things. And they were just trying to protect their place in the popular crowd. If they let me in, they might get bumped out, so the safest thing to do was to keep me out and make me look uncool and unimportant, and to do the same thing to all sorts of other people too. And the sad thing is that I did the same thing to other people. I did all sorts of mean and nasty things to other people because I was afraid too. I wanted to be let in, and if someone else was let in, that meant I might not be. And I was just too afraid to let that happen, so I did some mean things. And the other sad thing is that there were people in the outcast crowd or in the middle that I wanted to be friends with. I thought were great, but I was afraid to be friends with them too, because I didn't know what it would look like to those in the popular crowd, and I was very concerned about what things looked like. My fear not only caused me to be mean to others, it kept me from being as compassionate toward others as I needed to be, and as I wanted to be, too.